The world ended on a Monday. Ryan Carter had spent the morning in his rundown apartment, sipping black coffee and ignoring the distant sirens screaming through the city. He should have known something was wrong. The news had been vague, talk of riots, unexplained violence, and an emergency curfew. But in a world already drowning in bad news, what was one more disaster? By noon, the screams started. Now, standing in the middle of a street littered with burning cars and torn bodies, Ryan tried to keep his breathing steady. His paramedic uniform was stained with someone else's blood, and his shaking hands clenched a crowbar. He'd barely made it out of his last call, a routine emergency dispatch that had turned into a massacre. The patient had been dead when he arrived. But then she got back up. The entire city was a war zone now. Shambling figures with lifeless eyes and torn flesh lurched through the streets, drawn to sound, movement, and the scent of the living. Ryan had seen enough horror to understand one thing: these weren't people anymore. A guttural snarl yanked him back to reality. Across the street, a figure staggered forward, its neck twisted at an impossible angle. Half of its jaw was missing, exposing rotting gums and jagged bone. Ryan tightened his grip on the crowbar, heart hammering. "Just stay dead," he muttered. The thing lunged. Ryan swung. The sickening crack of metal against skull echoed through the air. The creature collapsed, but even as it lay twitching, more of them were emerging from alleys and shattered windows, drawn to the noise. He had to move. Ducking between abandoned cars, Ryan sprinted toward a gas station ahead. If he could find supplies, food, water, anything, he might have a chance. But the moment he reached the doors, he froze. A figure was inside, a young woman with a hunting rifle slung across her back. She saw him and raised the weapon in an instant. "Stop," she barked. "You bit?" Ryan shook his head, lifting his arms. "No. Just looking for supplies." The woman hesitated before nodding. "In and out. Don't get comfortable." Ryan slipped inside, the stench of gasoline and blood burning his nose. The place had already been ransacked, but he grabbed a half-empty first aid kit and some bottled water. The woman watched him closely, her finger never leaving the trigger. "You got a plan?" she asked. Ryan exhaled. "Find somewhere safe." She scoffed. "Yeah? Good luck with that. There's no safe anymore." She wasn't wrong. Every city was the same, burning, screaming, dying. But Ryan refused to believe it was over. Somewhere out there, someone had to have built a refuge. He just had to find it. A loud crash shattered the tense silence. Both of them turned toward the back of the store as something slammed against the emergency exit. The woman cursed. "They're coming." Ryan didn't hesitate. He bolted toward the front, shoving open the door just as the first of the creatures broke inside. The woman followed, firing a shot that echoed like thunder. The horde was waiting for them. Dozens of dead eyes snapped toward the sound. Ryan's stomach twisted. There were too many. "This way." The woman grabbed his arm and pulled him toward an alley. They ran, vaulting over debris, dodging the grasping hands of the infected. Ryan's lungs burned, but he didn't stop. They burst onto an empty highway. Abandoned cars stretched for miles, a wasteland of shattered windshields and dried blood. Ryan turned to his unexpected ally. "What's your name?" She hesitated before answering. "Lena." "Ryan." Before they could say anything else, an inhuman howl rose behind them. The horde had found them. Lena cursed. No time to talk. They ran. The city was gone. All that was left was survival. Ryan and Lena ran until their legs burned, their breath ragged in the cold night air. Behind them, the howls of the dead echoed through the empty streets, relentless in their pursuit. The highway stretched before them like a graveyard, littered with the husks of abandoned vehicles, shattered glass, and decayed corpses. Ryan knew stopping wasn't an option, but exhaustion clawed at his limbs. Lena yanked him toward a wrecked semi-truck. "Get down." They ducked behind the rusted metal as the shambling figures spilled onto the highway. The creatures weren't smart, but they were persistent. They sniffed the air, their grotesque faces twitching. Ryan held his breath, gripping the crowbar tightly, ready to strike if necessary. Minutes passed like hours. Then, finally, the horde wandered off. Lena exhaled and slumped against the truck. Close call. Ryan nodded. Too close. Now that they had a moment, he studied her properly. She was in her mid-20s, with short black hair and sharp eyes that flicked between suspicion and exhaustion. The rifle she carried looked well used, but she had only a half-empty magazine. You alone? Ryan asked. Lena hesitated before nodding. Had a group. Didn't last. Ryan didn't push. He understood. Everyone had lost someone. We need to keep moving, she said, standing. Where? She motioned toward the distant hills. There's an old truck stop a few miles ahead. Used to be a survivor checkpoint. Might be supplies, maybe even people. Ryan frowned. And if it's overrun? Then we keep running. They set off along the highway, weaving through wreckage, stepping over bodies. The city lights had died long ago, leaving only the pale glow of the moon to guide them. Every shadow felt like a threat. Every gust of wind carried the distant moans of the dead. After an hour, the truck stop loomed ahead, a lonely outpost on the edge of nowhere. Something felt wrong. The place was too quiet. Lena raised her rifle, her eyes scanning the darkened windows. Stay close. They stepped inside. Shelves were overturned, the floor sticky with dried blood. The air smelled of rot. Ryan's gut twisted. No bodies. Lena tensed. That's worse. He moved behind the counter, searching for anything useful. A few dusty cans of food. A half-empty water bottle. A rusted pistol with one bullet. He tucked it into his belt. Lena checked the back room. Clear. Ryan exhaled. Maybe they'd gotten lucky. Then came the click of a shotgun. Drop your weapons. Ryan and Lena froze. From the shadows, a man stepped forward, tall, bearded, with wild eyes that flickered with paranoia. He wore tattered military gear, the shotgun steady in his hands. You ain't infected, the man muttered. Not yet. Ryan slowly raised his hands. We're just passing through. No trouble. Lena didn't lower her rifle. Who are you? The man's gaze darted around, as if expecting someone to jump out at him. Name's Grant. This was my checkpoint. Before the military abandoned us. Ryan exchanged a glance with Lena. If this guy had been left behind, it meant the government had given up long ago. Grant narrowed his eyes. You looking for a safe place? Ryan hesitated. You know of one? A slow, bitter laugh. Only in fairy tales. Lena shifted. We heard a broadcast. About a sanctuary. Grant's expression darkened. That place? It's a lie. Something about his tone sent a chill down Ryan's spine. Why? Grant tightened his grip on the shotgun. Because I came from there. Silence stretched between them. Before anyone could speak, a blood-curdling shriek pierced the night. Outside, figures moved through the darkness. The dead had found them. Grant cursed. You led them here? Lena aimed her rifle at the door. Does it matter? The glass shattered. The fight was on. The first corpse crashed through the shattered glass, its body tangled in jagged shards. Its milky eyes locked onto Ryan, jaws snapping hungrily as it clawed forward. Move! Lena shouted, firing a shot. The bullet punched through the creature's skull, splattering the floor with dark, congealed blood. The gunfire was a dinner bell. More figures emerged from the darkness, their twisted bodies shambling toward the truck stop. Dozens of them. Ryan grabbed a nearby metal chair and smashed it against the door, barricading it as best he could. We need a way out, now. Grant spun toward the back door. There's an old service tunnel behind the storage room. It leads under the highway. Lena hesitated, glancing at Ryan. They didn't trust this man, but their options were running out. Go! Ryan shouted. Lena fired one last shot before sprinting toward the back. Ryan followed, heart pounding. The storage room was a wreck of broken shelves and discarded supplies. Grant yanked open a trapdoor in the floor, revealing a dark, narrow tunnel. Get in, he barked. Ryan slid inside first, landing in damp earth. The tunnel was cold and reeked of mildew, but it was a way out. Lena dropped in behind him, then Grant. The moment the old soldier pulled the hatch shut, the undead slammed against it, howling in frustration. Darkness swallowed them. Ryan flicked on his flashlight. The tunnel stretched ahead, narrow and claustrophobic. Water dripped from the ceiling, and the walls were lined with rusted pipes. Grant took the lead, moving quickly. This tunnel connects to an old drainage system a mile down. We get there, we're in the clear. Ryan didn't like being boxed in. How do you know about this place? Grant didn't look back. Because I built it. Lena stiffened. Built it? Why? He didn't answer. They walked in tense silence for several minutes, the only sounds their footsteps and the occasional distant moan from above. Ryan's instincts screamed at him. Something wasn't right. Then Grant stopped. There's something you should know, he said, voice low. Ryan tightened his grip on his crowbar. What? Grant exhaled. I wasn't abandoned. I left. Lena's rifle clicked as she raised it. Left where? The sanctuary. Ryan's pulse quickened. You said it was a lie. It is, Grant murmured. The place exists. But it's not salvation. Ryan's gut twisted. What happened? Grant hesitated. Then he turned, fast. Before Ryan could react, the old soldier lunged, slamming the butt of his shotgun into Lena's stomach. She gasped, staggering backward. Ryan swung his crowbar, but Grant was quicker. He dodged and drove his elbow into Ryan's ribs, knocking him into the tunnel wall. Sorry, kid, Grant muttered. I can't let you go there. Ryan struggled to catch his breath. Why? Grant's face was grim. Because they don't let people leave. Then he bolted. Ryan pushed himself up just as Lena groaned, clutching her stomach. Bastard, she spat. They couldn't let him get away. Ryan grabbed Lena's arm and pulled her forward. Come on. They sprinted down the tunnel. Grant's footsteps echoed ahead, fading fast. Then, a gunshot. Ryan and Lena skidded to a stop. Silence. They crept forward, weapons ready. Then they saw him. Grant lay slumped against the tunnel wall, blood pooling beneath him. A hole gaped in his chest. Ryan scanned the darkness, heart hammering. Someone else is here. Lena knelt, pressing 2 fingers to Grant's neck. Dead. She reached for his shotgun. A voice rang out. I wouldn't do that. Ryan spun. A figure stepped from the shadows, rifle in hand. A man, dressed in tactical gear, his face hidden by a mask. Drop your weapons, the stranger ordered. Ryan's blood ran cold. This wasn't a survivor. This was a hunter. And they had just walked into something far worse than the dead. Ryan's grip tightened around the crowbar. Across the dimly lit tunnel, the masked man's rifle remained steady, aimed directly at them. Lena, still kneeling beside Grant's body, glanced at Ryan before slowly raising her hands. Who the hell are you? The man didn't answer. Instead, he took a step forward, boots crunching against the damp earth. Weapons. Now. Ryan clenched his jaw. If they gave up their weapons, they were dead. But if they fought, they might not even get the chance to run. The man sighed. I won't ask again. Then, a faint static buzzed through the tunnel. The stranger stiffened. A garbled voice crackled over the radio strapped to his vest. "All units, secure, evac point." Ryan exchanged a glance with Lena. "Evac point?" Whoever this guy was, he wasn't alone. The distraction lasted only a second, but it was enough. Lena moved first. She grabbed a handful of dirt and flung it toward the man's face. He recoiled, cursing, as Ryan lunged. He swung the crowbar with everything he had. The blow knocked the rifle aside just as a shot rang out. The bullet ricocheted off the tunnel wall. Ryan tackled the man, driving him to the ground. They struggled, fists flying. The stranger was strong, too strong, and in seconds, he overpowered Ryan, slamming him onto his back. Lena aimed her pistol. "Get off him!" The masked man froze. Then, suddenly, he smiled. Or at least, Ryan thought he did. The man's head jerked slightly, and his body seized up, convulsing violently. His fingers spasmed around his rifle before going limp. Ryan shoved him off. "What the hell?" Lena breathed. Then they saw it. A dart was embedded in the man's neck. Ryan's stomach twisted. Someone had shot him. But not to kill. A tranquilizer? A faint hum filled the tunnel. Then, flashlights beamed from the darkness ahead. More figures emerged. Silent. Armed. Organized. Lena raised her gun. Ryan pulled her back. No point. They were surrounded. A woman stepped forward. Unlike the others, she wasn't masked. Her sharp green eyes studied them with unsettling calm. Ryan knew that look. A doctor. She motioned to the unconscious man at their feet. "Thank you for dealing with him. He wasn't supposed to be here." Lena scowled. "Who the hell are you people?" The woman smiled. "We're the ones keeping the last safe haven from falling apart." Ryan's pulse quickened. "Safe haven?" The woman's gaze flicked toward his crowbar. "You're looking for it, aren't you?" Lena hesitated. "Maybe." The woman sighed. "Then you should come with us." Ryan glanced at Lena. Her expression was unreadable, but her fingers twitched against the grip of her pistol. A trap? A real sanctuary? They had no choice. Ryan exhaled. "Fine." The woman's smile returned. "Good." She turned. "Bring them." As armed guards closed in, Ryan couldn't shake the feeling. They had just walked into something far worse than the dead. Ryan and Lena marched in tense silence, surrounded by armed guards. The tunnel had shifted from damp, crumbling concrete to something more structured, reinforced walls, faint lighting, even ventilation systems humming overhead. This wasn't just an escape tunnel. It was an entrance. The woman in charge led the way. Ryan studied her carefully, sharp posture, precise movements, a quiet confidence that came from power. Whoever she wasn't just a survivor. She was in control. "Where are you taking us?" Lena finally asked. The woman didn't break stride. "You'll see soon." Ryan clenched his fists. Every instinct screamed that this was wrong, but they were outnumbered, outgunned, and trapped underground. Fighting now would get them killed. For now, they had to play along. Minutes passed before they reached a steel door embedded into the tunnel wall. A keycard swipe, a metallic beep, and the door slid open with a hiss. Beyond it, a facility. Bright fluorescent lights. Hallways lined with sealed rooms. The scent of antiseptic, metal, and something else, something rotten, lingering beneath it all. It wasn't a sanctuary. It was a laboratory. Ryan's stomach twisted. Lena's fingers flexed toward her pistol, but a nearby guard cocked his rifle, silently warning her. The woman in charge stopped, turning toward them. "Welcome to Horizon." Ryan exchanged a glance with Lena. Neither of them spoke. The woman's lips curved into a slight smile. "You were expecting something different?" Lena's jaw tightened. We were expecting a safe zone. This is safe, the woman said calmly. For the right people. Ryan's hands curled into fists. And who decides that? The woman tilted her head, studying him. People like me. A chill ran through Ryan's spine. Lena's patience snapped. What the hell is this place? The woman folded her arms. A research facility. Before the outbreak, it belonged to a private organization conducting biomedical experiments. When the world fell, we adapted. Ryan's chest tightened. Adapted how? The woman smiled faintly. Before she could answer, a distant scream tore through the facility. Ryan froze. It wasn't the sound of someone dying. It was the sound of someone wishing they were already dead. Lena's knuckles turned white against her gun. What the hell was that? The woman sighed, almost bored. That was a mistake. She motioned toward the hallway. 2 guards stepped forward. Take them to observation. Ryan took a step back. We're not prisoners. The woman smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. You are now. Ryan and Lena were forced down the hallway, their weapons stripped away. The guards flanked them on both sides, their rifles steady, their faces blank. Ryan's mind raced. They had walked right into a trap. Lena's voice was low, sharp. We need to get out of here. Ryan didn't reply. He was too busy counting exits, memorizing routes, gauging the guards' reactions. There had to be a way out, he just had to find it. They reached a set of reinforced glass doors. Beyond them, a room filled with monitors, lab equipment, and something far worse. Cells. Rows of them. Each one holding something inside. Ryan's stomach churned as he stepped closer, his breath fogging the glass. Inside the nearest cell, a man, or what used to be a man, stood trembling. His skin was gray and slick, his eyes sunken, veins pulsing black beneath his flesh. He twitched violently, his fingers elongated, nails twisted into claws. He wasn't fully turned. Not yet. Ryan backed away, bile rising in his throat. What the hell is this? The woman, still calm, still eerily composed, gestured toward the cells. Progress. Lena whirled on her, fury in her eyes. You're experimenting on people? The woman gave a small, knowing smile. Would you rather we let the virus win? Ryan's chest tightened. They're still alive. For now, the woman admitted. We need to understand the infection, how it mutates, how it spreads. How it can be controlled. The word hit Ryan like a hammer. Controlled? The woman continued, unfazed. Some of these test subjects were volunteers. Others were less willing. But sacrifices must be made. That's the reality of survival. Lena's hands clenched. You're no better than the monsters outside. The woman's expression didn't change. We're the reason there's still a chance at survival. Unlike those who ran or hid, we're doing what's necessary. Ryan took a slow breath, trying to calm his shaking hands. That broadcast, the one about a sanctuary. You lured people here, didn't you? The woman met his gaze without flinching. Yes. Ryan's pulse pounded in his ears. This wasn't a safe zone. It was a slaughterhouse. A guttural snarl snapped his attention back to the cells. One of the creatures lunged at the glass, its mouth distorted, filled with jagged, growing teeth. Lena flinched back, her face pale. Ryan's mind raced. They couldn't stay here. The woman must have seen it on his face because she sighed. I can see you're struggling with this, so I'll make it simple. She gestured to the guards. You have 2 choices. You can join us. Or you can become part of the experiments. Ryan's heart pounded. Lena stared at him, a silent question in her eyes. Ryan knew the answer immediately. There was no way in hell they were staying here. Ryan's heart pounded. The woman's words still echoed in his mind. Join them. Or become their next experiment. He could feel Lena's gaze burning into him, waiting for his move. There was no choice here. Ryan acted first. With a sudden lunge, he grabbed the nearest guard's holstered knife and drove it into his throat. The man gurgled, staggering back as blood sprayed across the sterile white floor. Lena reacted in an instant, grabbing the fallen rifle and spinning on the other guard. Crack! The rifle bucked in her hands. The second guard collapsed, a hole between his eyes. The woman's calm expression finally cracked. Stop them! Ryan snatched the dead guard's pistol and fired blindly toward the remaining soldiers. Alarms blared, red lights flashing as security doors slammed shut throughout the lab. We need to move, now! Ryan grabbed Lena's wrist, yanking her toward the hallway. More guards stormed in, rifles raised. No way out. Then, a blood-curdling shriek tore through the lab. Ryan turned just in time to see one of the test subjects, the half-turned man, smash through the glass wall of his cell. The creatures were loose. The infected man lunged at the nearest guard, tearing into his throat with a feral growl. Screams erupted as more test subjects broke free, their inhuman wails drowning out the alarm. The lab descended into chaos. Lena shoved Ryan forward. Go! Now's our chance. They sprinted through the facility, dodging both bullets and claws as soldiers fought to contain the outbreak. Ryan spotted a stairwell leading up. There! They burst through the door, taking the steps two at a time. The woman's voice crackled over the intercom. Security, lock down the upper exits. Do not let them escape. Ryan cursed. They're cutting us off. Lena's breathing was ragged. We'll find another way. They slammed through another door, emerging into what looked like an old loading bay, rows of abandoned trucks, rusted crates, and a ventilation shaft. Ryan didn't hesitate. He ran to it and wrenched the grate open. Lena covered him, firing at the pursuing guards. Hurry! Ryan crawled in first, the metal groaning beneath him. Lena followed, slamming the grate shut behind her. Inside, it was narrow, dark, suffocating. But it was a way out. They crawled forward, heartbeats hammering in sync. The gunfire faded behind them, but Ryan knew they weren't safe yet. Then, a distant breeze. A way out. They reached the end of the shaft and kicked the panel free. Ryan dropped down first, landing in overgrown grass. Lena followed, stumbling beside him. They were outside. The lab, Horizon, stood behind them, buried beneath the ruins of an old industrial site. Ryan turned to Lena, breathless, shaking, alive. She met his gaze, eyes blazing with determination. What now? Ryan exhaled. He glanced back at the hidden facility. The world was overrun with the dead. But Horizon? That was worse. Ryan tightened his grip on the stolen rifle. We make sure no one else falls for their lies. Lena nodded. Together, they vanished into the night, free, but forever changed. The end.